So to introduce ourselves, I'm Beth Grady. I am the District STEM Instructional Coach. And with me, I have Ben Taglieri
Hi, everybody. I'm the District Instructional Technology Coach.
and Julie Dolan.
Hi, I'm the literacy coach for the district.
And so we are here in an attempt to go over some of the platforms that our teachers and students will be utilizing. Here is our agenda. We're going to go over, have a little bit of an introduction. We're going to go over the student work area and general expectations. We'll take a look at the video conferencing tool. We'll then dive into Office 365.
So people did submit questions prior to this, and they generally fell into a few categories that we wanted to address up front in case you're here because you have a specific question that you wanted answered and didn't necessarily want to stay for the whole thing. Hopefully everyone got communications about the device distribution plan. That's starting tomorrow for any student in the district who chose fully remote. We divided it up because we're going to use some of the district desktop computers for the fully remote students. And those are going out tomorrow, and they should match the times that if your school is sending home physical materials to have at home for the fully remote students, those pickup times match, so you only have to make one trip, hopefully, up here. Another question, and then Friday is for hybrid students in grades 5 through 12 who will be spending some of their time learning from home, and we split that by school. So in the morning from I think it's 8:30 to 11:30, students going to SRS can come and get their devices, and in the afternoon powder mill students in grades 5 and 6 can come to get their devices, and all the pickups will be at the main lobby and of the regional school. If you got one in the spring, it's going to be basically the same thing. And that we did then. So you pull up to the front here, and someone will come out to your car. You can just roll your window down, and you'll fill out the acknowledgement sheet that you're getting a device. We'll drop it in a bucket, and that'll be that. As far as school accounts go, we are expanding it this year because of the many of our students learning remotely and the potential to at some point have to switch to remote. So all students K through 12 will have an individual school account. We expect that primarily in the younger grades that account is sort of designed for the parent more than the child to be able to communicate with the teacher and submit work using the platforms that we're going to show you in a minute. And the passwords will be preset for grades K through 4 this time. So the school will set those passwords and have a record of them in case they forget them. And Beth, I think you were going to say something about the remote learning plan.
Yeah, and there's some questions about the student schedules. In the remote learning plan for the district, there's a resource at the end. I'll show you where it is. On the district website, if you go to COVID-19, click here for COVID-19 resources, I believe it says. You'll click there, and an option is the reopening plan. And within that reopening plan that was shared, there is the remote learning plan, and there are some schedules within that. Your individual teachers may switch some things around, but for the general layout, that is the schedule. So with the remote learning plan, there is a combination of what we call synchronous learning, which means that that's live learning. Like right now, we're all synchronously learning about the applications. And then there's asynchronous, which means that it would happen away from the computer. You may get the initial information on the computer, but then you move away and kind of have a screen break to do asynchronous work. So it's throughout the day with all grade levels, it's a combination of synchronous live teaching and asynchronous work. And we'll be talking about the common apps that will come up also with this, and how students will be getting the assignments, how students will be submitting the assignments in the next portion. So some of those common apps, Ben, do you want to do that introduction plan?
Sure. There were a couple of questions in chat. We are not sending home devices for any part of the phase roll-in for the students who will be face-to-face for most of the time, primarily because of device availability during the first few weeks of school and the moving of them back and forth. I do believe that all the schools are doing their physical materials pickup tomorrow, but I wasn't a part of that communication, so I just know we were trying to coordinate that. I don't know
They're
what.
not all doing it tomorrow.
Oh, they're not anymore? Okay.
All remote kids for Woodland School can pick up their materials tomorrow, but I'm pretty sure at Powder Mill School, the principal, Aaron Carrier, will be notifying parents when their grade level stuff is ready.
Okay. So we can't really answer too many questions about that piece of it. I think this individual school principals are communicating to families on documents and the packets. Okay, and I guess an email went out this evening from Powder Mill. Another common question was around what different computer applications the students are going to be using and how are we going to introduce them so that it's manageable. And we know that in the spring, obviously this happened kind of all of a sudden. We had to kind of quickly come up with plans for how students were going to be doing work at home. And a lot of them were not familiar with the apps that we were ending up using. So it is our goal within the first few weeks of school to really focus on the applications that I have listed below here, and that we'll review with you tonight, so that all the kids are familiar with how to use them. And that was part of the reason for doing this tonight, is to hopefully familiarize families with how to use them too, if they're trying to support their students at home. Zoom is going to be our primary online meeting tool. There was a question about why not Teams. Teams does have a very similar feature, but for our instructional model, the breakout rooms in Zoom that allow for small group collaboration and discussion is really essential to try to mimic what the learning experience in the classroom would be like online. And so we had to make the decision to introduce Zoom. So we're going to be using that. And the Office 365, these are the tools that many of you are familiar with, like Word and PowerPoint. The 365, it just means that we're primarily using what's called the cloud-based version of these apps, or the apps in the web browser, like a Chrome browser. And we'll be using Outlook for the email and calendar, OneDrive for file storage, and Teams for class communication. And this is sort of like the online classroom, and also where all the assignments will be. And the remainder of the, after we get through this first little introductory part, we'll take a deeper look at each one of those and where you can find these different functions. And these are the ones that we'll have the teachers sort of focusing on in the first few weeks of school.
Okay, so our next slide is about the environment for your students who are learning remotely. And it is really important, and I know challenging depending upon the setup of your home, to try and have a constant workspace that is always like their little classroom. So we want to make sure that, as the picture shows, that they're sitting at a table that's the right height with the right chair and posture. We don't want them laying in bed or sitting on the couch while they're in class. We want to mimic the same environment as the classroom as much as possible when they're at home. So we want to try and make sure that we can find a quiet location for them. If you can't, that happens. Life is busy. I know I'm on Zoom meetings and my animals are going nuts, and what we all have on is a great resource. We're all wearing headsets with microphones, and this really cancels out background noise and also makes it so that the rest of the family doesn't have to listen to everything that's happening. Your window should be in front of your computer, because if your window's behind you, it just washes you completely out so people can't see you. And, oh, it already said the noise canceling headphones. So just try and do the best you can. We know it's difficult, but we want to have like all their supplies right there and ready to go. So they're not, oh, wait a minute, I got to run, find pencil, paper. expectations. So this was a challenge for students and teachers alike for various reasons. So this slide speaks to the expectations of what we expect from our students when they're in Zoom classrooms. And
Julie, I accidentally muted you. I was just muting all the participants and it included you apparently. I didn't think it would do the hosts. My apologies.
that's quite all right. Nobody wanted to hear me rambling on. So you can read the slide yourself, and we will have this posted if you want to look back as a resource. But the main thing is that we want students to show the same courtesy that they would show in the classroom. So the norm is going to be that they're going to be muted like you all are right now. You'd be amazed how much background noise is going on, even if you don't think so, and it can be very distracting to the presenter. They need to make sure that if they have a question, whatever guidelines the teacher sets up, it might be just raising their hand. If it's a small group, they might just say unmute and speak. You have the option in the toolbar to raise your hand. I know that there's been talk, I'm not sure if it's on this slide or not, that teachers will be setting up some sort of protocol for even if they need to leave the Zoom meeting to use the restroom, just so that we know they're getting up and doing something. They're not just taking off. So if you can just make sure that your children are aware of what the expectations are from the district, that the chat, this one could be troublesome, that the chat is used for conversation about the class and the topic going on, not to say, hey, what did you do Friday night? And then when we go into breakout rooms, which is a large part of the type of instruction that we do in our district, there will be adults popping in and out, but they will also need to show the same sort of respect and rules that they would in the classroom working in a small group. Can I cover all those bullets back? Yeah, I think I basically covered it.
So like we said, the video conferencing tool that we're going to be using for the most part is Zoom. So we are all in Zoom right now. And so our screen looks like this. And the mute button, if you are on a computer, a PC, is down in the lower left-hand corner. So that is how you mute yourself and unmute yourself. If you're muted, that means there's a red line. So when your students are in a space like this, the main room we call it, we want to pretty much stay muted. As Julie referenced, you may think that your house is really quiet, but there is some static and some feedback that comes through. So staying muted until asked to do so is beneficial and similar to what they would do in the classroom, until they have their hand up and asking a question there. The next button over on the bottom, and if you're kind of following along on the bottom, sometimes it hides and sometimes it's there. So you can kind of see is the start video button. And this is where you either have your video open so you can see each other, or you have the video off. Having the video on is beneficial to the teacher so they can check in the classroom. We're used to seeing kids' faces and getting that facial reaction, like, are they with me? Are they off? Are they, we're used to that human connection and seeing that. So in Zoom, we want to replicate that as much as possible. Some students may not feel comfortable. So there could be some possibilities to do some virtual backgrounds that are non-distracting. Some of them could be pretty distracting. So we do want to make sure that it's school appropriate and not obnoxious in the background. And if they are using the virtual background, it's just at the beginning of class, if they have the teacher permission, and they're not flipping back and forth throughout the whole entire class. Because as students, as you're a learner in a Zoom room, in a Zoom meeting, you can see flash kind of going on sometimes, and it can just be distracting to everybody. So we want to respect everybody's learning. The next button over is the participant button. Here you can see, if you click on that, you see the whole list of participants. There's the raise hand feature. There is a yes and no. This might be one option that teachers do to get, hey, is everybody with me? There's a couple different ways they could do that, but this might be one. They can also, if they click the 3 dots, they can give a thumbs up, a thumbs down, an applause, and a coffee mug. Some teachers are thinking about using that coffee mug as their break. So if they did have to step away to use the restroom, they could kind of leave that coffee mug up so that the teacher knows that they just needed to step away for a moment. The next is the chat button. This is where you can message the host with questions. Again, one of the expectations would be what goes in the chat is school appropriate, and it's about the topic of that class. There are ways to save the chat so that we can see it and we can have it as well. Then the next is the share screen. So for the most part, this will only happen when students are sharing their work. For instance, they might be put into breakout rooms to work on some documents together in their small group and collaborate with each other. So one of the group members may be acting as the driver or the leader for that portion, and they may share their screen so the rest of the group members can discuss and they can take notes about what they're talking about. Or maybe the teacher has shared virtual math manipulatives, and they might be taking the math manipulatives and putting it into the slide and maneuvering it together. By having the share screen option, it allows all the group members to see the exact same thing. We are in the share screen right now. I have my screen shared so that you can see my PowerPoint presentation. So the teacher will allow students to have access to this share screen at specific times. It might be in a whole group situation where they spoke to the student and was like, you know what, you did awesome on this. Can you share your screen? Or that was a really unique way that you thought about that math problem. Can you, put your screen up and so we can all talk about it. And then another fun feature is the reactions. So if you all find your reactions button, it's the little emoji smiley face, you can give me a thumbs up and you will see that it pops up as people find it and can navigate it. And so that's a thumbs up that it stays up and then it just disappears. So as what we call like a formative assessment. Another important piece of Zoom in understanding Zoom is it's almost like a cover to the notebook. So Zoom is all on the forefront of your screens right now. However, behind Zoom, if you were to exit full screen, which is this button highlighted up in the top right-hand corner, that it allows you to see everything, everything behind it. So if you needed to look at a website, the students can shrink their Zoom screen and then look at the website behind there. And it is really beneficial to understand, like some people think that the big complaint, or not a complaint, but a big trouble area is, I lost Zoom, where'd you guys all go? Because sometimes the videos disappear. So at the bottom on your taskbar of your computer, if you look for the Zoom icon, you can just click that and then we'll pop right back up. So sometimes it's not necessary to always see other members. Whoops. Sorry, I haven't moved in a while. So sometimes it's not necessary to see all the members. So it's totally fine if Zoom goes off the screen because you're still talking to each other. You can still hear each other. But it is important to understand how Zoom, you can remove the layer of it. So this button up at the top, it allows you to enter and exit the full screen. Another aspect, another way to do the same thing is by splitting your screen. So a way to do that is if you find the Windows key, which looks like this on your keyboard, and then you click either the left arrow button or the right arrow button, it'll take your Zoom, it'll pop it over onto the side. So you can, go back. So that's another way that you can do it. So you can see you split your screen so that you can see both things, the Zoom and another document at the same exact time. So that's the essence of Zoom. Are there any specific questions that we could answer? You could probably either throw it in the chat, or if you're feeling brave and you want to unmute, you might be able to do that. I'm just not sure how that will go with this number of people. Did you have a question you wanted to ask? I hear somebody is trying to unmute.
Someone asked.
Go ahead. I have my hand raised. This is Robin Dunn McDonough.
Yes, go ahead.
I unmuted, so maybe you're speaking to me. So I just want to, my granddaughter's not with me, so I could educate myself. Will somebody be educating her on how to use the Zoom and all the good stuff?
Yes. So that is our plan at the beginning of school, is to take time and bring the students through using Zoom and navigating it, and using Teams and bringing this through as well with our students. Thank you for your question.
Is Zoom going to be set up right onto the laps that you guys provide?
So the idea with Zoom is we're going to be putting the teachers will probably be putting a link for their personal meeting room or a meeting room into Teams. And we will show you how to get into Teams. And then from that, you just click and it comes in. And Ben, it should be all downloaded, correct?
Yeah, all the devices have Zoom is what they call part of the standard image. So when they set the devices up, they've all been loaded with the Zoom on it. If for some reason a device does, if they missed one somehow, we can put a tech support ticket in and get it loaded on there.
I'm just trying to look at the chat at the same time.
There's one that asks, what is the command to split screen on the Mac?
I don't have a Mac. I know there is one for it. I could Google it, and it's very similar. I know it's a press a button and an arrow. And I think you can also, the first method that Beth went over, where you just shrink the screen a little bit so you exit full screen, and then you can resize the apps that are open, is another sometimes even easier way to do it.
Someone else asked, for students on hybrid on their days at home, will the classes be live streamed with the same class that's in school? That depends on the grade level that your student's in. If your student is high school, it will be. And if your student is 5 and 6, they will not be.
Ben, I will have to double check about the recording, but in our settings, we do have, will you just confirm this with me? That in the settings, we do have ways to stop others from recording.
Yes, yeah, that's
right.
it. When you schedule the meeting, you can set it so that people can't record it.
Right. So our teachers will take care of that to make sure that students don't have access to recording, through Zoom. Okay. Any other questions about Zoom? Our next topic we'll be moving on to is the Office 365. So a Zoom link for every class. So they will have, we'll talk about this, they'll have a team for every, they'll have a team class for every class. And in that, there'll be a Zoom link. So if you're, I'm not sure what grade level your student is in, but let's say if they're in high school and they have multiple teachers, or in some of the other grades that they have multiple teachers, each teacher would have a Zoom link for that. So it would mimic switching classes. There would be a period of time in between the two classes, and they would switch and go into a new class.
Yeah, but when they're learning from home, typically a part of that learning, and even 5 through 12, will include a Zoom meeting with the teacher. So there'll be like a synchronous portion where they're meeting with the teacher. And yeah, the units that are going home, you should be able to hook up a second monitor to those. I think all of them have a HDMI port on them.
Okay, so if you still have questions, you can add them to the chat. We're going to pause after each section to answer your questions as we go through.
Okay, so we're going to move into the Office 365 portion of this. This is a little technical, and there'll be lots of places where we're going to say you can click here and then click there and then click here. I don't think the goal for us right now is to memorize exactly how to do all of these things. It's just to kind of review what they can do, get some general familiarity with where the different features are. And then we may have to refer back in the future when it's time to actually do this to a PowerPoint resource like this, or reach out for support. And we are planning on doing some office hours in the mornings on the first days of school. So if you're struggling to find something, you'll be able to hop into a Zoom at that time, and we can try to get you straightened out. So while there's a lot of just kind of screenshots of different computer screens coming up, I think the goal is to really just review what each of the apps do and where you go to do it. And one thing I tell everybody really is, I think the best way to learn technology is just to play with it. Start clicking things, see what it does. So when you're in there, I mean, typically the only way you're going to get into any real trouble is if you delete something. And it's typically pretty hard to accidentally delete something. They try to make it clear that that's what you're doing. So it's pretty safe to click things. And Mike, we are recording this, so I think the plan is, as long as it goes reasonably well, that we could try to post it on the district website. And we can actually, I think we can, Beth, we can share a link to this PowerPoint in the chat if you think that's okay. Just set it so that people can't edit it.
Yeah, if I do it now, though, they're going to see it. Like, I'll have to get out of the PowerPoint, so we can do that after. Or
oh, because you're sharing your screen. Sure. Or when we switch off, I can do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So first up, how do you find Office 365? Each of your school's district web pages all have a link directly to it on the web pages, and it's pretty much in the same spot no matter which one you go to. This is the safest way to access Office 365. Sometimes if you type Microsoft into your web browser, it's trying to get you to log into something different. So we just tell everybody, go to your school's homepage, find the Office 365 link, and then you're going to log in with your student's username. Their school email address is their username, and then whatever password they have for their for that school account, and that will get them logged in. So it's the same thing that you use to log into the device itself. Oh, and we had a slide on that, so I jumped the gun. So once you click that, this is, and the school usernames are all structured the same way. So it's the student's first initial, last name at k12.stgrsd.org. The only times that there can be a difference is if the student has a sibling in the district with the same first initial, then they can put a 1 here at the end of the E there. and that'll distinguish between the siblings. And for the passwords, for K through 4, it's going to be set by the district. And then 5 through 12, they're individually managed. And we did do security questions so that the kids were all asked to answer some security questions so that they can reset their own passwords if they forget them. Okay, so we logged into Office 365, and one of these two screens are going to show up depending on what version is running in your browser. The new version is on your left, where you can see all of the different apps. It starts with Word and Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook. And the older version is they're strung across the top. Same icons and same ability to access them. They just change the lookup a little bit, and so you might get one of these two views. And we're going to start with Outlook. So those are the two places you can find Outlook. So Outlook's our email system and our calendar system. This for the purposes of this session, we use the empty inbox. But you can see that you have folders over on the left, favorites, your inbox, and then a new message. So if you're going to send an email, you would just click the new message. And do we have a slide with that, Beth?
That one?
Yeah, so then so when you click new message, this pops up. It's pretty standard, 2 fields who you're going to send your email to. The carbon copy is beneath that. So if you wanted to, they call CC somebody on an email, just to kind of let them be aware of what is included in that message. Add a subject. Sometimes we find that students type like the entire message in the subject. It's better not to do that. So they can just give a topic that the email is about, and then put the entirety of the question in the body of the email. And then in the bottom corner, the bottom left-hand corner and the top right-hand corner are your ability to send that email. There's a lot more you can do with this, but for the purpose of sort of a brief overview, I mean, that's the gist of it.
Yeah, some of our younger teachers would appreciate parent help with understanding that the subject is not the message of the email. It's a learning curve.
And then so Outlook is also the same app for your calendar. One thing I just want to point out, like a pretty standard formatting of all the Office 365 apps. Beth, if you could just put the mouse in the top left-hand corner over where it says Outlook. Whatever app you're in, it can get a little confusing when you have lots of tabs open and you're navigating between apps. It's going to tell you what app you're in the top left-hand corner right there. And if you want to switch, that 9-dot grid to the left of it is clickable, and it's going to do a drop down with all of the options. So it's a pretty fast way to switch back and forth between the different applications, and also for you, just as a reminder of where you are. So the mail feature and the calendar feature are both in Outlook. And we're going to switch to the calendar. And this is what pops up if you click on the calendar. For a lot of our students, we're going to try to use the calendar as sort of a replacement for their agenda book if they're not learning in person, and they're learning remotely part-time, or even when they are in person and a teacher can't physically touch the agenda book. So rather than having the physical books, we're going to try to manage our assignments using calendar. In the top right, if you look at the top right arrow, you can see that we're set to the month view. That's changeable. You can narrow that down to the work week, or a full week, or even a single day, to have a better look at that individual day. And then when we want to add a new event, there's 2 ways to do it. You can either click in the top left where it says new event, or if you had like the day up and you wanted to, you knew you wanted to quickly create an event at 8 o'clock on September 9th, you could just click where it says 8 o'clock on September 9th, and it'll create a new event there too. And when you click new event, you'll get this next screen. So this is the full menu of things that you can do. You can add a title, invite other people. You can put a description in the bottom. For teachers, they might set up repeating events, but for the students primarily, they'll probably just give it a title and maybe put a little description to remind them of what's due. And then this will appear, you know, I think the recommendation is to set it for the due date, so they can, when they quickly look at their calendar, they can see what assignments they have coming up that are due, and they can manage their time hopefully that way pretty well. And also if they have meetings that they need to attend, they can put those on there. So this is a good habit for all of our students to get into as they, you know, especially as they get older and are managing different classes and different responsibilities. These online calendars can be really awesome for being able to go to one place to look to see how to manage your time. Again, there's tons of stuff you can do with that, but those are the basic features that you need to understand just to get started. And then when you're in the top left, you hit save and it gets added to your calendar. Okay, so we had a whole slide here just showing you the 9-dot grid in the top left. If you clicked that, the screen over here on the right pops out and you can see all your apps. So this is how you can quickly navigate between different applications while you're logged into Office 365. All right, we're switching over to OneDrive, but before we do we have any questions on Outlook? I see chat got busy.
I was trying to keep up with some of them, Ben.
There was one, Ben, that I thought was a great question. Can you disable the private chat?
Yeah, so you can set it so that and when you schedule the meeting, so that the students can only chat with, the only private chat they can do is with the host of the meeting. So if they wanted to ask the teacher a question privately, they could, but that they're not allowed to chat with each other.
Okay, because a parent had that problem last spring with their child passing notes that way, so to speak.
Gotcha.
So,
There's
yeah,
lots of different ways they can do that, but that's one thing we can control. Unfortunately, they're crafty and can find workarounds with other things too.
But we can make sure teachers know that they need to lock that down.
Yep, yep, we can do that.
And Megan, I see your question here. Which Zoom app do the students need from the Microsoft Store? So Zoom is actually a separate website. So we're using Zoom and then Office 365. So there's just two places. But the teachers are going to be putting the Zoom link in Teams. So technically it's one place. We're trying to get everybody to go to Teams and then go off to limit the amount of places for the students to go.
Yeah, we want to have sort of this was based on what was really kind of unanimous feedback from the spring, to have a central place to start your classes and to go to, and then move from there to the different things that you might be doing with the class, but try to keep it systematic for everybody across the district. So we're starting out trying to do that with our team's homepage as the place to go for that. So if there's a Zoom link for that day's class, they can find it there, and their assignments will be there as well. And if you have a district device, it should have Zoom already downloaded onto it. If you purchase the device, you can download Zoom onto the device from the zoom.us website. So you do want to do that ahead of time.
Ben, one parent asked if there were any suggestions for interrupted internet, which is a problem at their house, and they're concerned about it affecting their students' participation ability.
Yeah, that's going to be one of the challenges that we face at the start of this, and have to try to figure out how best to go about that. To the extent that we have resources that we're sharing with the students, like the PowerPoints and things like that. Hopefully we can go back and review with them, and they can have access to that to see what was being covered. And I think it's going to be a process at the start here to see how frequently that becomes an issue and how big of an issue. And that can be both true for at home and in school. But we're optimistic that in school is going to go well. Right now, we're not asking teachers to record classes, but we can, as we get, so the part of the rollout plan is to kind of try to keep things simple at the start, and then as we get comfortable with what we're doing, add things. So an option for the future that we'll build towards is for teachers to be able to record some things prior to the class, and use those like Screencast-O-Matic is one tool, or even recording is a Zoom where only you're in it and you want to share that with the class and the students aren't in it, is something that I think we'll see increasing use of as we get more comfortable with these basic tools. Okay, so yeah, and agreed that we'll have to see how it goes at the start. We're trying, I mean, I think in the first couple of weeks of school, while we're going to get into the content, we'll try to really focus on using these tools, building the class routines and practices, and keeping the content. We still need to do some content, but a little bit lighter with our classes, and then hopefully once we get this down, we can start really getting heavier into the content and potentially using some additional tools to make sure that everyone has access to it. Okay, I think we got everything. So this is OneDrive. Again, if you look in the top left, and Beth, if you can just throw your mouse up there. I'm so used to them being able to see my mouse that I keep moving it. I'm like, it's not going to go. We know we're in OneDrive here. It was one of the apps that we could select from the 9-dot grid. And this is really just it's cloud storage. So it's like any local drive that you save files to. Like on many computers, it's the C drive. Sometimes people were saving stuff on flash drives. Wherever you're used to saving stuff, this is another place to do that. The advantage of it is that it's in the cloud. So any device that has an internet connection and a web browser, you can go to Office 365 and have access to your files. It doesn't matter what device you're on or what network you're on. You can get access to this. So this is really good for the situation we find ourselves in when we're moving between locations and having to learn from home too, to start migrating things to the cloud. And right now what you're looking at, so these are my files. I don't think we have any in here that you can actually see, but it's really easy to create new files. You just click this drop down button and you can create a new over here on the left, it shows you what it looks like. You can create new folders, and pretty much any type of document that you can create in Office, you can create right from here. And I definitely recommend going here first. So if you know you're going to need to create a Word document for something, go to OneDrive, put it in the folder that you want it in, and then create it there. And that's the way you'll know where it's saved, rather than going to Word directly and just creating a new file from there. It will still appear in OneDrive, but this just allows you to take care of the organization first, and not have to move it later. So that's a tip for using that. Next to that, you can see upload. So if you have a bunch of files on a flash drive or on your desktop and you want to migrate them to the cloud pretty quickly, you can go into OneDrive and you can upload files, and you can upload entire folders. So if you have your files organized in folders on your desktop and you want to get them into the cloud, you can upload an entire folder at a time. And this is a good place for students to start putting their work. This is primarily going to be used with students in the little bit of older grades. A lot of the work the students are going to do for class is going to be organized in teams assignments. and they'll find all the work that they need to do there, and the assignment and the document that they'll work on is actually linked right to the assignment. So they'll have to use this less, but for students in older grades who might be creating files independently of assignments, this is where they can go and do that. I did notice there's some chats. Yeah, I don't know that we'll get to the point of recording like the actual live class, but you could make recordings of you doing a presentation. That was the primary content delivery of that class, and then making that available. But we're gonna have to build up to that a little bit, I think, because I don't think we're quite ready to start asking people to do that. And then will teachers be saving classwork and PowerPoint presentations there too? Yeah, that is where the teachers will be doing most of their work, that when they're creating their stuff. Yeah, and then for that question about that specific account, I'm not sure. We could talk about that after and see if it's just a syntax error or if there's an error in our system and we have to fix it. Okay, did I cover everything on OneDrive we were supposed to? I think so. Okay, so we're going to shift to Teams, but I will pause for any other questions on OneDrive. Okay, I'm not seeing any, so we'll shift to Teams. So again, we're back at our Office 365 homepage. We just logged in. My apps are over here on the left. I click this one that has the T on it, and that's the symbol for Teams.
And this is the updated version. Sometimes it depends on the version of the Office 365, whether it's vertical or horizontal or vertical.
Yep, but as long as you're clicking that symbol, you'll be in good shape.
Mm-hmm.
When you click it, it's going to bring you here. Now, your student probably won't have this many teams, but in the upper grade levels, where they have different teachers for different classes, you'll see a different one of these squares for each of the classes that they're in. This is happening over the next couple of days, so they might not be there for this current school year quite yet, but they're getting, our system automatically creates them once all the schedules are done. So that's happening currently. Over on the left, Beth, if you could throw the mouse in the purple bar on the left, these are the different apps that are linked to Teams and that are for all your teams. So when you click, like, for instance, activity, notifications from any one of your teams will appear under activity. And that's a good place to check to see if there's new stuff that happened in Teams while you were away. And the calendar is basically the same as your calendar in Outlook. You can edit it right here without shifting back to the Outlook app. And the assignments list, that will list the assignments for all of your classes, not just the whatever class that you're currently in at that time. So that's a good way to get a check on all of your assignments. Same thing with files too. That'll bring you to a link to all your files. So just know that that's not specific to whatever team you're currently viewing. That kind of runs behind the scene, connecting all of them, and you can get updates from each of those different selections. Most of the time when we're in Teams, though, we're going to have the Teams one selected. So if you're not seeing your teams, check over here on the left and when you're back on the previous screen and you click the Teams icon, if it pops up and you don't see these squares, there's two possibilities. One is that over here on the left, you're clicked on something different. And so just click on Teams and that will bring them up. And then you can also change how the teams are arranged on the screen over where the cog is on the top right. And if you click there, you can change the view of how you're seeing them. I happen to like this view the best. And then I see my different classes and then I pick which one I want to work in and I click on that one. And it brings me to a page that's going to look something like this. I just made a generic one for tonight to give you a look at what it looks like inside the team. So you can see on the left, I have team selected. I'm in this Parent Tonight team that I created. And there's a few features here that I want to just point out. My screen hasn't. Is anybody else having that problem? Beth, we could try stop sharing and resharing. I don't know if that would help. And we just need to go back one slide. You may have to click on it again to get it to be active. You might have your Zoom active. There we go. And back another one. There we go. Okay. So this is sort of like the starting point when you click on a team, what you'll see. If you look along the top where it says general, and then it says posts, files, class notebook, assignments, and grades, this is what they call tabs. And this is where most of the functionality is going to occur in the team. Posts is a message board where a teacher can post notifications. Sometimes students, if they set it up, if the teacher wants, can have students post questions there that they might have about an assignment. We'll put a Zoom link in the posts. I'm sorry, Cindy, I'm not sure what's happening for you. When assignments get created, the teacher can have the assignment post into this channel as well, so the students can see them there. And it's a good communication tool for the teacher to be able to organize communications for the whole class. And we're going to try to keep this 2 teams for these general messages to the whole class, and kind of try to keep it as consistent as we can across classrooms. So we have been showing teachers how to use this over these past 2 weeks, and given a general sense of the capabilities of what it can do, and types of channels that we can create, which I haven't mentioned yet, but I will, and where students can expect to find things. The most important thing that we're keeping consistent is the use of assignments. I don't want to jump too ahead, but I saw the question, so I wanted to mention it. Next to posts, you can see files, though. We're probably not going to use this all that much. A teacher might put a class syllabus here, some general reference material, but it's not going to be the materials that the kids are working with all of the time. Class notebook, next to that, is an app that we're going to work on over the course of this school year. It's really cool. It can do a lot of things, but it's going to take us some time to get that up and running and being useful to students. It also can be a little difficult to navigate, so we didn't want to add that in right away, with the idea of I think simple being better for the start of this, and then adding things in as we get comfortable with these tools. I see the question there. It is possible that some teachers got really good at using that and may introduce this to students sooner than some of the other classes, but we're asking everybody to really focus on the key, the key 3 being the Zoom meetings and the Teams, and the PowerPoints, the different file types in OneDrive, and navigating that format first. But Class Notebook is going to be, I think, pretty great. It's just it takes a while to get it set up and running. Under assignments, I got a question from, I think, a student. I think that there will be a part of each of your classes that's definitely what we're calling synchronous and online, where you're going to be in a meeting with your teacher and your classmates. You might be put in breakout rooms to work in Zoom. So when you're learning from home, I do think we're going to spend a good portion of the day online and try to build in different breaks and some offline activities that can be a part of the class as well. But this is the plan for the fall is much different than it was for the spring, where we're really trying to structure the day as close to a regular school day as possible. as opposed to just assigning work and saying, you know, it's due at a certain date, and having check-ins with teachers. This is going to emulate a school day much more closely. Assignments is the big one that we're going to take a deeper look at. And this is where the students should find the vast majority of their work. Grades right next to it. We're not currently using this as the primary grading tool. It's not a bad place to get a glance at your grades for anything that's been graded using Teams assignments. But there's still the official grading tool where you can get like your actual grade for the class will be in Plus Portals. We're not changing that. Because I think people are pretty comfortable with that and know how to use it already. So if we click assignments, this particular student only has one assignment active right now, and it was just a getting to know you example that we created. And if we click that, something like this will pop up on your screen. And you can see it says it has brief instructions attached with the due date, and there's something called My Work. Those documents are editable by the student, so each student is going to for this assignment, these documents are already attached to it, so they can click on that assignment or that document, open it up, work on it, close it, go to the other document, work on that one, close it. And until they hit that turn in button in the top right, they can keep coming back and working on this. So they can open the document, work on it a little bit, close it, come back to it later, work on it again. And then when they're done, hit turn in. This was something that got a little confusing in the spring for teachers who were using this. A lot of times the kids would open the document, work on it, and close it, but never come back here and turn it in. So we want to make sure that they're doing that. And yes, these documents are all in the online version of the apps, and so they save automatically. You can check in the middle. I don't have a screenshot of a document. You do want to make sure that in the top middle where the document name is, it says saved next to it. I could imagine a scenario with a poor internet connection where the work was having trouble being saved, and if you closed it before it finished saving, you could lose some of the edits that you made to the document if that happened. So checking in the top middle and making sure it says saved would be really good. I suggest that they always choose the online version of the app, and it's for that reason exactly. If they open it in the desktop, that can also cause a problem where it saves in a different spot and it loses its link to the assignment. So opening it in the online version is definitely the way to go. If for some reason they had work that they did somewhere else and they had it saved somewhere else, like they did want to use the online version of the app and they saved it in a different spot, then they would have to click the add work, the paperclip and the add work underneath the assignments and save it there. So it's just way easier to do it this way, where you're just clicking it here, opening it on the online version, doing your work, making sure it says saved, and then closing it. And then you may have to come back to the assignment and open it up again to turn it in. So just make sure you're coming back here to turn it in. I suspect that this is going to become pretty routine pretty quickly once we're doing it frequently. So I think some of the problems that we ran into in the spring should be solved hopefully quickly in the fall once everybody's doing this and has more frequent interactions with the teachers and everybody's aware of how to do it. And then when you go back, I don't know what we put on the next slide. Okay, so after I hit it, so this is where I can, so I'm back on, if you look in the top middle where it says assignments, I'm in the assignments tab. I only had the one assignment, so I don't see anything currently assigned to me, and I see that it's completed. So when I hit turned in, the assignment moves from assigned to completed. So that's another way to know that you turned it in. The teacher can still see it even when you're working on it, and that's something that we've been talking to the teachers about this week is that there's some pretty cool things that they can do with feedback and suggestions, so they can view the progress while the student's working on it, but they only know to grade it when it's turned in, and it only gets stamped with being submitted once the student turns it in. So it could show up as late if you turn it in after the due date. And so you'll know that you were successful because it'll move down here to the completed spot. All right, and that was, I think, the gist of what we wanted to cover with teams. But we weren't going over anything with Plus Portals yet. That's a little different. And typically they do that when they first get into school. Beth, did you want to say, were there any other questions about teams specifically? One thing I did not mention, and I should have, is over here on the left, you see a general tab. There can be more than one thing listed here. So for instance, we're suggesting that teachers make a Zoom channel, and it would say Zoom channel underneath general. And when they click that, the posts in that channel are different than the posts in the general channel. And so we can have that set so it's just the Zoom link, no other questions or comments. So they can always just go there and find the Zoom link to their class. For assignments, they're only visible from the general channel. So if you're in the team and you're looking at, like, I don't see assignments, just check to make sure that you're in the general channel, and then assignments will appear up top. And no, so the files in your OneDrive aren't linked. If the teacher creates a document specific to that assignment, then the student should go to the team's assignments and access the document that way and just do all their work there. And then we don't have to worry about the right assignment being attached to the document. We know that as long as they go to the assignment and open the document there and do their work that way, we should cut down on the number of times where the work seems to go missing. Account information should be going out either when the students get to school or just prior, but when in the first few days they should have that. And I'm not 100% sure. The IT department takes care of that, so I don't actually know how they communicate that to new students.
Actually, Ben, since that student is going to be at Powder Mill, the administration is actually going to be giving each student like a passport that has their passwords and logins on it.
That's an awesome idea. We did not create a feedback survey, but that's a really good idea. I don't know if it's too late to do that now. We are going to do this again on Monday. And yeah, I think I don't see any reason why, as long as it downloads to Zoom well enough, that there's any reason why we can't post this. How to remote?
That will be the remote students when they pick up their materials. It'll be in their bag for any of the other materials with the specific days. I know 6th grade is coming tomorrow for remote students for Powder Mill. I can't quite remember everybody else, but I know Miss Carrier sent something out with that specifically.
I think it's 4th and 6th tomorrow.
And just as a reminder, I do think that this was probably a lot, if you've never looked at any of these screens before, we're showing you a lot of different screens with a lot of different options and places to go and things to do. And that is why we're going to practice this with the students at the start of the school so that they get some experience doing it. I just wanted to give you a general sense of the different tools that they'll be using. And so you have a general idea of how we're doing that. But I wouldn't feel like you have to have this memorized right now or we'll be in trouble. It was just, we wanted to give an overview of sort of the general structure of how the apps work, but fully understanding that it takes some practice and playing around with it to get good at it and remember where everything is.
Third grade was still getting some things together. So Ms. Carrier will be sending out an email to let you know when the other grade levels are ready for their materials to be picked up.
And the devices don't have to have anything downloaded on them for the office stuff, because it's all available through your web browser. So that for the vast majority of what we want students to do, they don't actually need the desktop version of the application. They can just use the browser-based one. So when you sign in, when you go into Chrome and you go to the district website or your school's website and you log into Office 365, all of these things run right through your web browser. So very similar to if you're familiar with the Google system and how they do it with the Google suite of products, this is Microsoft's version of that, so it can all run in the cloud.
Someone asked a question about first graders remote. They will be picking up their device at the high school tomorrow, but their other materials they will need to pick up at Woodland.
So I think you had a question about when on that one. Was that a question referring to when for Woodland, or for first grade?
I didn't see the question, but it's my understanding that you can go to the high school whenever they've set up the time to get the device, and then whenever you're done there, you can go to either go to Woodland, and they have bins for all the kids there.
Okay, sorry, I didn't realize that was about the device too. So the devices are only for fully remote students in K through 12, and then the hybrid students in grades 5 through 12. So if you did fully remote for K through 4, we should have a device for, well, we will have a device for you, and that's tomorrow. And it's aligned to when you're supposed to pick up your materials. And I think we did it alphabetically, but if Powdermill's not picking up their materials, I think it would be fine to basically come whenever for that, if it's just that school.
Someone's asking if they can't pick up the device at the set time, how can they get it?
So we are going to do a backup time. Once we've done the initial distribution, we have to kind of reorganize what we have and then set a second time to come and get it. I'm hoping for Monday, but I just need to work with IT on that, because they are really working hard to get these ready to go home.
So I just wanted to direct everybody to the reopening plan. If you do have questions, you can see kind of the guidance of the remote. We've spent a lot of time. One really fortunate piece is that our district is working with Mike Flynn, who is a director of the math leadership at Mount Holyoke College and is a leading, I don't even know what to call him, a leading expert of remote learning and a hybrid situation. So we kind of had like an inside scoop and being a part of the Mount Holyoke College and with that. So we have him as a mentor for this. So when you read the reopening plans in the remote learning plan, a lot of the information did come from our experiences with how he runs it at Mount Holyoke and how he runs it when he goes and visits classrooms with students. So if you go to the district website, stgrsd.org, and click here for COVID updates, you'll click the the here, and then you'll see the final reopening plan on the side. And it has some samples pretty close, I believe, to the schedules that will be put in place, but so that you can see some of the ideas with the remote learning plan and kind of get a picture of a student's day. And then we spoke earlier about office hours. So myself, Julie, and Ben are going to be in like a Zoom meeting like this on September 15th through 17th from 7:15 to 11 a.m., where if parents or students are having issues with getting on, and the teachers are going to start teaching, and as a way to alleviate the bombardment possibly with staff, with teachers, there'll be more information coming out where you can jump into our Zoom and we can help navigate some of the different areas. The way that we would probably work on it is one person would stay in this main room while others of us went off with group people as they came in to help them work through everything. And I know someone asked before about a feedback survey. We didn't put a feedback survey out, but if you do have feedback for us, we're open to it. We want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our members of our district and providing what you need so that we can make this as successful as possible. So you can either feel free to send it in the chat. You could do it privately to me. You could email us. You could email one of the principals and they'll let us know. Let's see.
I have a quick question. I heard somebody say the laptops were only for the kids that were doing full remote learning. What about the kids that don't have the computers and doing part-time?
So in grades 5 through 12, when they are in the hybrid model, there will be laptops for those students. Just a reminder to everyone, if you're in grades 7 through 12, for the first few weeks, we're going to be low on technology. So we're going to ask the students to bring them back and forth with them to school. And that'll actually probably continue moving forward. And so for those grades, we're doing the laptops. For the full remote learners who aren't traveling back and forth, we're trying to utilize some of the stock of desktops that we have. So that's part of the reason for that, because they don't have to bring them back and forth. So on Friday, if you're a hybrid learner in grades 5 through 12, you can come to get a device. If you're an SRS student, you can come in the morning between 8:30 and 11:30. And if you're a powder mill student in grades 5 or 6, you can come in the afternoon. And that's just so that, so there's not a huge line of cars. We're hoping to space it out a little bit to be able to get the devices out. And I forgot what I was going to finish with there, but I think I covered it.
Someone asked, will Wednesdays be half days? Wednesdays are half days for teachers being in front of students, but students will have work to complete in the afternoon. So it's a full day of learning.
I remembered what I was going to say. If you have students in both schools, if you have a student in fifth or sixth grade, and then another student in at the regional school, you don't have to come twice. You can just come to one, and we can take care of it.
Someone asked if we were going to have a general support email that they can send a message to in case they run into issues, like kind of to get a support ticket.
So we're doing the office hours to try to reduce the number of emails that teachers have to take care of, especially in the first couple of weeks. But we also know that the primary point of contact for students and their families is their teacher. And definitely in the spring, it seemed like that's how information was being filtered into the district. And the teachers will have at the in grades K through 4, we'll have the students' passwords. So if it's something like that, they'll be able to handle that. But other than that, they need to have a staff account to submit a ticket in the IT help desk system, and that's to try to keep this manageable for our IT department, which is the same size today as it was when we were running normally, and so they're filtering it kind of through them.
Angela, yes, you can pick up all your devices tomorrow since you have kids in every building.
I think that pretty much wraps it up, right?
Yeah, so that wraps up our formal presentation. If there's other questions, I just saw a couple come in.
Yeah, Kayla, I don't know about yearbooks. You might want to call the main office of the high school.
Right. For high school students, first day of school, how will they get their Zoom link for each class? Ben, you've been talking to some of the high school teachers more. I know Powder Mill, I believe they're sending emails. I believe teachers will be sending, most likely will be sending emails to their students with the first Zoom link.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the plan is for that. I don't know what communication has gone out to the teachers here at the regional school for how to do that yet. So they're still working on things, and we're using every last minute we have to get things ready here so that we can have as strong an opening as we possibly can. But that said, we do ask for everybody's patience. This is new for all of us, and it's a significant challenge to how we do school. So we're working on it, but we'll get through it together. And I think in a short amount of time, we'll be looking at this like we got this, and school is going to be pretty good.
Yeah, so I would tell your students to check their emails, maybe starting Friday. I know they're still on summer break, but to see if there's any communication from their teachers for that, Jennifer. So I know we technically have 10 minutes, but if all your questions are answered, you can feel free to leave the meeting. That's one beauty of using Zoom. We don't get offended when people just walk out. But if you definitely have questions or just want to hear if there's any other questions, you're free to stay on for 10 more minutes. We appreciate all of you jumping on and trying to learn this and really showing a unified front and support for all of our students. That's what we're all here for.
I appreciate that, Beth. And this is Jenny Sullivan. I've just been kind of listening in to see what concerns parents have. You were people that were asking about feedback, not just to your building principals, but also to me. I have said all along, you're free to email me or call me. I try to respond as promptly as possible. We want to know what your concerns are. I really appreciate the coaches for doing this tonight. I hope that this is a good illustration of the value of instructional coaches and what they can bring to our district so that we can advocate for those positions to continue. But also just want to wish everyone well. Hope everyone comes back safe and sound on Tuesday, and feel free to reach out to me if you need anything.
Yeah, Ben, can you grab the PowerPoint link and we can shove that into the chat?
Sure. There was also one question about who to reach out to if you can't log into Office 365 prior to the start of the school. If we could email, probably for now, and I hate to do this to any teachers, but it's probably the best way to do it would be to contact them from a different email and with your student's name, and they can check to see if you have the correct password. If something's wrong with the account, they can then put a help desk ticket into IT.
So I can stop share and I'll stop the recording. So in the chat was the PowerPoint for the slideshow, and we will try and email all the participants that came in by grabbing your emails from Zoom.